Good night, people. I hope you had a good day today. I want to talk to you about fear, but kind of like in a general sense. Yesterday morning, when the earthquake happened, I was in the bathroom and I was very tired, and somebody had asked how I was, and I was answering the person via text to say, how tired I am and all of that, to the point of exhaustion. And while I sat there responding to the text, I just felt a heavy swaying. My whole body was just swaying, and I panicked. So even though I panicked, I was writing to the person to say my body is literally swinging because I thought that my blood pressure had gone up and maybe I was going to fall or something. So I was contemplating whether I should scream out to ask for help or anything like that, but I actually didn't. And while I sat there, the feeling went, and I waited a little bit, and then I got up and I walked to the living room. And shortly after I walked to the living room, my phone rang, and my best friend said to me, "You felt it?" And I said, "No." "What, earthquake?" And she said, "Yes." So I was saying, "No, I never felt it." And we were talking, and I said, "What did it measure on the Richter scale?" And she said it hadn't come up yet. So I said, "Oh well, maybe it wasn't felt in Manchester because I never heard anybody screaming out. I never heard anything. I never heard the dogs barking. And I certainly hadn't felt it." But while she was talking to me, her phone rang, and it was my daughter talking to her on the line. I don't know, she was trying me, I wasn't getting through, because usually when she tries me, she doesn't get through. She calls Bestie. So she was talking to her, and I heard her saying how dizzy she felt. She said she was sitting on the toilet and she felt dizzy. And then I made the connection that that is what was happening when I felt that swaying. It was the earthquake. But because I'm so accustomed to that rumbling sound that drives me crazy whenever I hear it, and the shaking, I didn't stop to think that that swaying had anything to do with the earthquake. So I went to Google to find out what it measured, and I saw that it measured 7.1. And there was a little section, I think it was volcano discovery, that had that part under there, and it said report it. So whether you felt it or not, report it. So I clicked on the section that said I felt it, and then when I was answering the question, I saw they had a list of questions asking, and then I saw that one of them said, did you feel a sense of sway, something like that. I don't know how it was worded, but something to that effect. Was it horizontal, was it vertical? And there were other questions, but I zeroed in on the swaying and the horizontal, and I said it was the horizontal. It was asking how did it make you feel, because that is the exact thing I got. It was heavy. When I say heavy, a heavy heady sensation, so much so that I thought that maybe I was going to pass out, because like I said before, I panicked because I just thought maybe my blood pressure had gone up for whatever reason, and it was so heavy and I'm swaying. And listen to me, I heard all sorts of talk about it, and I'm in a prayer group, and the ladies were talking about it, and somebody said it brought on a headache, and somebody else was dizzy, and it affected us in very different ways. But I was saying to myself that it is interesting that I didn't hear that terrible rumble. I don't like the rumble at all. It drives me crazy. I didn't hear the rumble, and I didn't hear or see any shaking at all. The whole place apparently was just swaying, and I was swaying, and didn't realize what it was. But you know what I find horrifying? How badly Haiti was hit. Because when I read what was um on the report, the Google report, it hadn't yet said what kind of damage was done. It just said where it was felt, like in the Dom Rep, Puerto Rico, um, Cuba, Haiti, and outlying areas of the United States, Jamaica, and that kind of thing. But when I heard what happened in Haiti, my heart just really, really hurt me because I'm saying, my goodness, can Haiti take any more? What is going on with Haiti? Are they set on a fault? Well, not even on a fault, because if it's a hurricane, it happens to them. And if it is the earthquake, it happens to them. And if it's violence, it happens to them. I just don't know. We just have to pray them up because we really don't know what is happening with them. And then tonight, no, I discovered that a whole lot of people were injured, like 5,000 and odd, and over 1,000 people have died. Somebody told me that they also experienced a tsunami. I'm not sure because I didn't research that, but that is what I heard. And I'm just saying, you know, we have natural disasters all the time, and we here in Jamaica, we're so blessed, and we're not to take life for granted. You know, people, we mustn't take the blessings that God gives us for granted, because people are in places where their lives are in constant danger, you know, whether from natural disasters or otherwise. And so we just have to thank God one more time, because that was a 7.1 magnitude, and earthquakes like those really make serious devastation in some places. I mean, see, Haiti got it, and look what has happened to them. And I don't know that we have suffered any real damage, any structural damage, or any loss of life. I haven't heard anything of the sort, and I listened to the news and I haven't heard anything like that in Jamaica. So I'm just saying that we are so wonderfully blessed. But on the weather report, I think it was last night, the weatherman said that a hurricane was heading for Haiti and it would hit by tomorrow or Tuesday, and I'm saying no. And when the reporter interviewed the president for the Haitian community in Jamaica this afternoon, she said that the storm has been downgraded. So happily, they might not be hit, but you know, I could not imagine they're just experiencing an earthquake of such catastrophic proportions, and then now to get a hurricane on top of that. So I am happy to hear that the thing has been downgraded, and hopefully they won't suffer any more loss. But you know, earthquake is something that most people are fearful of, and I think one of the reasons is because you don't know when it will hit, and there isn't very much that you can do. But generally speaking, fear is not a nice emotion. I have a friend who is afraid of lizards. Lizards. Let me tell you something. She has a seriously morbid fear of lizards. And even the word lizard conjures up all sorts of emotions in her. She just frees up and like she's going to go crazy. I used to be like that with worms and slugs, but I think I have come a long way where that is concerned. I'm not so afraid. My fear hasn't gone entirely, but I'm not so fearful, especially if they're not close to me. I'm not afraid of lizards and all of those insects that run fast. I'm not afraid of them, but the little ones that are slow and tumbly, like the little maggots and the little worms, and they're cold, they freak me out. But I'm making a little headway. I'm making a little headway with that. And you know, somebody said to me one day when he discovered that I was afraid of worms, he said, listen to me, God has given you dominion over the animals and over the birds and the what have you. And I'm saying to myself, That was before sin entered the world. But now, I don't know about that. But when I think about it, we can't sit and allow these little things to cause us to get into such a situation that it immobilizes us, and we're going to go crazy. I remember one day I was at school and I heard a commotion, and I came out of the office and stood up looking, and I saw a girl running up and down, and two people were behind her and they grabbed her, and she was flashing and screaming and carrying on, and I was wondering what was happening. Well, you know what? She was sitting on the seat beneath a tree, and there were two green lizards up there. Apparently they were fighting, whatever it is that was happening, and they fell down into her head. She heard and felt the thud in her head, and she sprang up and ran off and boxing and carrying on. But they have little legs that are sort of clingy, and she was wearing braids. So she was boxing, she wasn't sure because she was afraid and boxing, and she wasn't getting rid of them. And when they saw that it looks like she was going to lose her mind, they grabbed her because they had gone after her after she started to run and carry on. And they went after her and they held her, and somebody boxed the things out of her head. And when they let her go, she was still screaming and tearing up the place because the sensation, apparently, she just thought that they were still there. And they really had to take her and calm her down. It took a while. She just went into a state, you know. And I just imagined, oh my goodness, if if they were not able to hold her and get rid of the thing out of her head, and like one of them would have run down in her clothes. I mean, I'm not afraid of lizards, but the thought, it just gives me the chills. I remember also one morning when I was going walking and my niece was going with me, and we stepped out of the house and stepped onto the veranda, and there's a big croaker, and I heard the thud in the girl's back. I hear thump, and I just hear her screaming, and I see her making up herself, and I realized that the lizard was in her back, and she was running up and down and screaming, and there wasn't much that I could do because I couldn't get a hold of her. But anyway, she apparently managed to shake it off because it actually landed on her skin. Woohoo! Wow. And she got rid of it. That was a time. That was a time. And like the slugs that I so hate and I'm afraid of, I don't walk around in the house without my shoes. I always have on a pair of slippers. And one night, many years ago, I don't know why, I just got up out of the chair, didn't slip my feet into my slippers, and just stepped out onto the veranda. And when I stepped out there, I stepped on a slug. And people, I believe with all my heart that people in Israel and Jerusalem could hear me screaming, because I almost lost it. And look here, for a whole week, I could feel the sensation of the thing on the sole of my foot. I couldn't manage. I think if I never needed the foot, I would have just take it off and leave it someplace. I really would have, because it was awful. It really was awful. And I know that sometimes we just can't allow ourselves to be bogged down with this kind of fear of these little things. So there are ways of getting over it. I remember when I was doing my degree, I don't know which course it was that we were doing, and they talked about getting rid of a certain kind of fear by storming. So like, for instance, like how my girlfriend is so morbidly afraid of lizards, they perhaps would put her in a room with a lot of lizards, and she would stay in there, and they would run around, and you know, she would get rid of the fear. Same thing with the worms and stuff like that. But I think it has got to be a mindset. You have to tell yourself in phases that this thing is so small and it runs quickly, I shouldn't be afraid of it. And I think this is what has helped me not to be so afraid of these two little things that I really had a morbid fear for, the slugs and the worms. I didn't even give my children worm medicine because I was afraid that maybe in giving them worm medicine, I might have to remove it from them, and I wouldn't be able to manage that. So I don't take it myself either because I was always afraid that, because I've heard all sorts of stories, and I just let it be. But I understand they now have medicines that you can take that macerates them, so they come out all cut up so you don't even know it. But just the thought, you know, bothers me. And there are little animals. I have a friend who is afraid of cats, and somebody else who's afraid of chickens. I forgot to find out if this person eats chicken meat, because if you're afraid of chicken, you cannot eat chicken meat. No, sir. I'm afraid of cats. I don't know what it is with the cats. Because the cat is a big animal, big enough, that walks around and whatever. So I don't know what it is, because I also remember having heard about this lady who, her daughter had a cat sound on her phone, and her daughter had come visiting and forgot the phone, and apparently she wasn't sure where her phone was, and she was calling the phone, and the mother heard the phone and tell her husband that there's a cat in the house and he has to get rid of it, and he's walking around and looking, can't find any cat, and every now and then somebody would call the phone, and he kept looking, and then he saw a blue light one of the times, heard the cat, and when he looked he saw it was the phone. So he alleviated her fear by letting her know it was the phone and not an actual cat that was in there. I'm sure that somebody can relate to something I've said about these kinds of fears, and how we need to just, I don't know, try to just be strong and tell yourself that they're small, and those ones, the ones that we're afraid of, usually don't really hurt us. So, you know, don't allow them to cause you to be so fearful, and you can't move from point A to point B because they're in the doorway, and you can't go there, or they're on the car windshield and you're going to turn over the car because the lizard just dropped on the windshield, plop, that kind of thing. It's amazing what can happen when we're afraid of these things. Anyway, I think I've spoken enough about this. I trust I haven't freaked out anybody, and I hope you'll have a good one. Blessings. Remember to subscribe, share, leave a comment if you will, and hit the notification bell so you'll see what I have to say next. Have a good one, guys. Thank you. Blessings.